here this evening for our opening fall meeting, and I greet you all, and we have an exciting program ahead of us this evening. I would like to take this moment to have Dr. Barry Herman make a couple of comments before we commence with the balance of the evening.
Thank you, Sherman. A warm welcome to all of our friends, members of the Society, residents of Tower 1, Tower East. I have a copy of our first book, Jews in New Haven. It was written in 1978, and I'm just going to read one paragraph from the President's message. And the President in 1978 was the late Harvey Layton, who, as you know, was the founder of our society. And this is what Mr. Layton wrote. We believe that it is good that our society has been formed. We are presently working on two major extension projects. One, to find adequate place to house our material, and two, to seek funds to carry out our work. For the present, we are in pursuit of help, volunteers, to do what is needed as we go along. We are convinced that we will grow at an increasing rate in the years to come. These prophetic words were written in 1978 by Harvey Layton and published in our first book. We've come a long way since that time. However, we're still looking for space. We're still looking for funds to carry out our work. We're looking for more members. Our membership has increased. And what we would like to do at this time, I'm going to ask all of you to please stand. If all of you would just stand. As you know, we are dedicating this meeting to Harvey N. Layton, our first president, the founder of this society. His wife Eleanor is here, son Ronald, his sister, members of the family. He had a vision, and we honor him tonight and the wonderful achievements and the work that he did to make this society a reality. Please join me in a minute of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Now I turn the program back to our president, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, Barry. I just want to mention that Joel Wasserman, Harvey's son-in-law, is recovering from surgery, and that's the only reason he isn't here this evening. At this time, I'd like the past presidents that are present here to stand up and identify themselves so the general body can see who we've had in the past and our present officers. The past officers, presidents, Barry Herman, who is also our program chairman, Werner Hirsch, who is doing the photography this evening, our curator. Are there any other of our past presidents? I don't believe so. Joe is the one that's absent. Judy Schiff may be here later. She had another engagement. With also the board of directors, whatever board of directors we have here this evening, please get up and identify yourselves.
Sally Horowitz.
She's also our secretary. Ruth. Our treasurer. Rita Gold has another hat also. She's our new acting editor of our newsletter. And of course our guest speaker, Joe Horowitz. Are any of our trustees here? Oh, by the way, Miriam Schwartz is our
Everything.
that's right, she is everything. She's actually the administrative director. And if you have any problems, anytime you call, Miriam will take care of you. That's what we all say. By the way, we have the only one that isn't here out of our staff is Carl Newland, who has just been hired recently as our new assistant archivist. Yes. Is one of our members, Bert Levy? Is Bert Levy here?
Yeah,
And you didn't get up?
what I do.
They told me you're still on our board.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. I think you just wanted to wait for the right moment. Thanks, Bert. I'll give you a little background on some of the happenings. This past Monday, Murray and Marvin Lender hosted an event for in tribute to the ethnic center that we are working on. And this particular group, which is representing most of the ethnic groups within New Haven, looking for the home site, which is being worked on now on Dwight Street, the Pauline and Walter Hall properties, which encompasses about 4 acres of properties, is being worked on now with our attorneys. We have the firm of Harry Wexler of Holt, Wexler and Crawford and Merchant, and Sam Gardner of Gardner Ryan Architect and Designs doing preliminary feasibility studies. The studies are not complete yet, but the planning seems to be going in the direction that we will be hopefully in a position to report a very favorable report soon. Of course, many things still have to be worked out with the attorneys, just how the properties will be turned over. When we have further information, then we will come back to the general body to confirm or not confirm the project. The Federation has been very gracious to help fund the part of the cost of the feasibility studies. The function that brought together 2 seatings last Monday, it was outstanding. We had the mayor of New Haven, we had the chairman of the Board of Aldermen of New Haven address the second group, and the people that attended from the different officers of the societies were very, very happy about it and very positive that this project is going to be an outstanding project, the first in the United States to bring upon all the groups together. It should ease many ethnic problems within the city. And as I said, it's looking good. And we will report later on further developments. Also, we have, and I think most of the members have received in the mail, there's a history workshop series, 5 series, that's being sponsored by the historical societies and the 350th New Haven celebration in the city of New Haven. They're free. There's 3 more programs that will be running for the next 3 Sundays. And anyone interested in attending, there's folders that I have here. I'll be only too happy to share them with you. And further on, we are finally coming out with our Book 5, Jews in New Haven. It's being printed presently. It should be available either the latter part of November or the very early part of December. It will be in honor of the 350th celebration of New Haven. Also, we have up here for sale for anyone that would like to purchase them, volumes 2, 3, and 4 of the other series of books that we have. They're for sale up here, and if anyone wants to, they can see Miriam Schwartz right after the meeting. The other thing I have on my agenda here, dues. We cannot exist without dues. For the people who have not paid, we would appreciate them remitting their dues, and those that would wish to join us, we certainly welcome all new members. And last but not least on my agenda here, December 1st will be our next meeting, which will be held here. And there is one other communication I do have here from the Jewish Federation. The Jewish community of New Haven, along with the Board of Rabbis of New Haven, are sponsoring on Wednesday evening, November 9th, Kristallnacht 50th anniversary. It will be held at Michigan, Israel at 8 p.m. All the Jewish community are urged to attend. It's a show of solidarity. I thank you. I'm going to turn the program now over to Barry, Dr. Barry Herman, who will introduce our guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherman. We're on the air. We're on tape. How many of you folks grew up on Grand Avenue or used to do a lot of your shopping on Grand Avenue? Can we see a show of hands? Oh my goodness. You had a store on Grand Avenue. And many of you probably had relatives who had stores on Grand Avenue. And Grand Avenue in its heyday was really, really quite an area of the city. And of course they had two shuls. Remember Olive Street Shul and Bradley Street Shul? Well, you're in for a wonderful, wonderful treat tonight. Our president, Mr. Kramer, mentioned Book 5. Well, Book 5 is also going to carry more tales about Grand Avenue, growing up on Grand Avenue, written by our speaker tonight, Mr. Joseph Horowitz. And he has so many wonderful, wonderful things to say. And like everything else, I have to clutch something. Maybe I'll grab Sherman. He's not my type. Anyway, his talk will be full of nostalgia, reminiscences, a real walk down memory lane for you. I'm going to introduce Joe, tell you a little about his background. He is the fund coordinator in the Office of Development at the Jewish Home for the Aged. He is a retired training manager, sales training manager in the marketing department from SNETCO, Southern New England Telephone Company. He's a graduate of New Haven College, now the University of New Haven, where he received a degree in accounting. He taught at Fairfield University. He also conducted sales training seminars for the state of Connecticut's adult education program. He is a founding member of the New Haven Jewish Historical Society, and at present, he is a member of our board of directors. Joe, you really have quite a background. Very, very impressive. Joe reminded me, of course he was kidding, thank goodness, his picture and the article about him was in the Ledger, and where do they place it? On the obituary page. What else? Joe has quite a sense of humor. His presentation will recount tales of his growing up as a small boy on Grand Avenue, and it's taken from a book that he is writing. We had a small part of it in Book 4. There will be more about his reminiscences in Book 5. He calls it, and I know this name will bring back memories, Broken Crackers and Cracked Eggs. Broken Crackers and Cracked Eggs. In his book, he will recall, as he will in his presentation tonight, the merchants who line that busy thoroughfare, as well as nostalgic memories of the time. He is the husband of Beatrice D. Horowitz, father of Frederick, David, and Susan Horowitz. Man, B, why don't you raise your hand? His wife is here, his claim to fame, the other half of the dynamic duo. And so, friends, without further ado, please welcome Joseph Horowitz.
Thank you, Barry. What I shall attempt to do tonight in the 30 minutes that has been allowed me, plus a few minutes for a question and answer period, is crowd in about 5 or 6 years of my growing up on Grand Avenue as a little boy. I've been regaling my family with stories of my growing up on the Avenue, and it was at their insistence that I put these stories into writing. And tonight I'm going to bring some of them to you. I was born in a... Can you hear me back there?
No.
No. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I was born in a tenement house on Grand Avenue facing Franklin Street. The neighborhood was made up primarily of Irish, Italian, and Jewish families, most of the stores on the avenue, incidentally, being conducted by the Jews on the avenue. How about now? I want to introduce you to the people I've lived with in my tenement building. This was a 3-story tenement building over 2 ground floor stores. On the ground floor was Isaac Duckler, his wife, and his 3 children, Nathan, Samuel, Milton. Across the hall from him lived Reuben Goldberg, whose family included his wife, his sons Ralph, Simon, Nathan, and a daughter, Ruth. On the 2nd floor, which was actually the 3rd floor of the building, lived my father, David Horowitz, my mother, Fanny, my brother, Cass, my sister, Frida, as well as myself. Our neighbors across the hall were Gene Kennedy and his sister, Nellie Kennedy. He was a bachelor, she was a spinster. On the top floor lived Joseph Butler. His family consisted of his wife, his daughters Nellie, Elizabeth, Helen, Josephine, and a son Tom. Tom instantly brought a degree of fame to the avenue because he later became a policeman. Across the hall from Butlers lived Katie McJones and her brother Owen. Now here we are, all of these people, adults and children, living together harmoniously in one tenement building. You might be interested in the occupations of the people living in the house. Mr. Duckler was a peddler. He sold fruits and vegetables from a horse and wagon. Mr. Goldberg ran a dry goods store. My father was a watchmaker at the New Haven Clock Shop, which at that time employed thousands of watchmakers since they were internationally known. Across the hall, Gene Kennedy was a foreman at Sergeant Hardware, while his sister, a spinster, stayed at home. On the top floor, Joseph Butler was a corset ironer at Scrubs and Adler. That should bring back pleasant memories. But across the hall, Katie McJones was a laundress working at the New Haven Wet Wash Company, while her husband Owen was a hack driver for Sisk Brothers funeral undertakers were up the street. That tells you how we lived and with whom we lived and how well we got along with them all. I used to go on many errands for my mother. I discovered at a very early age that she had but one arm, having lost her right arm at the shoulder when a young girl. One of our favorite stores was Fannie Bailey's Butcher Store. That is where all the ladies belonging to the Sisters of David, members of the Bradley Street Show, would gather. Now there was another kosher meat market on the avenue owned by a Mr. Archowski, but somehow or other the women all favored Mr. Bailey because he would sing a little, kibitz a little, tell a yarn, but all in very good taste. While my mother waited to be served, I ducked behind, just want to keep track of my time, I ducked behind the counter to pick up scrap pieces of meat for my sister's cats. She fed every stray cat on Grand Avenue and all side streets. So every time, on every occasion when I visited Manning David, I came back with a bag full of meat scraps. My mother was very good at picking out chicken because as a young girl, she had worked at a Jewish restaurant on her arrival in New York. I can see her turning the chicken over and feeling for fat. That at that time was the chief rendering agent, long before Western oil made an appearance. It was Western oil that Jewish women favored came on the market. After my mother had made her selection, she told me to follow the chicken through to the back room, to watch the chef do what he had to, and then turn it over to the chicken flicker. She didn't want the chicken she had selected to be switched. So I followed that chicken back. The chef did his duty, and then the chicken was handed to Mrs. Fox. I don't know whether any of you remember Mrs. Fox. She was a short, roly-poly lady sitting on a short stool. Her hair, her eyes, her nose, her ears, even her mouth were filled with chicken feathers. And I felt so sorry for her seeing her at work. However, a metamorphosis occurred when the high holy days came around, because there, in front of the Bradley show, all decked out in her holiday finery, was Mrs. Fox. She wanted to make certain that every one of her customers saw the real Mrs. Fox, the one that could get dressed up when the occasion called for it. There were other stores on the street that I was sent to. As a matter of fact, there were 3 grocery stores right nearby. One was owned by Etta Shapiro and her elderly mother. Another was owned by August Sitnitsky. He lived over the store, while the Shapiros, incidentally, lived in the rear of the store. And the third store was owned by an elderly couple, Benjamin Sobel and his wife. In addition to the Sobels, they had their granddaughter living with them, Lucy Wally. She was my age, had gorgeous red hair and freckles. And that, as a result of that, even though my mother said I could go wherever I wanted, whichever store I wanted to go to, it was always to the Sobels that I went, so I could get another look at Lucy. Somehow or other, my mother always knew when I went to Sobels, because after coming home with the butter and schmaltz herring and other things, she would say to me, "I know you went to Sobels. I can smell it on the butter." Mr. Sobel forgot to wash his hands after he sold kerosene to his last customer. And how true it was, because in those days, these stores dispensed gasoline as well as booth gums. There was another fine store on the avenue that we went to when we wanted a little better grade of delicatessen. That was a store owned by Osias Nessel. His store was brightly lit. It was merchandise was well laid out on the shelves, and it was actually a pleasure to go there, because as far as the other 3 stores, they were dimly lit and had merchandise strewn all about. As good as Osias Nessel's store was, there was an occasion when the company came to visit from New York. They usually came under Richard Peck. On that occasion, I was instructed to go to Oak Street to get the very best delicatessen. And that I did by going to the wonderful delicatessen store owned by Samuel Silverman and his wife, they being the parents of our good friend Dave Silverman. And I was also told that while I was on Oak Street, to go further up to Kajkowski's Bakery, where I get the best possible bread on Oak Street. The reputation of Oak Street was well known to us on Grand Avenue. Now, there were other stores that I would go to. One of the stores we came to shopping was Bergblum and Shapiro. My mother would take me there for a suit or a coat. And women went to Bergblum and Shapiro as well, because it sold the finest grade of women's apparel on the street. Everyone was sad when Bergblum and Shapiro closed up. In that very same store, at the corner of Grand and Bradley, Benjamin Perlmutter moved in. Perlmutter had a smaller store on the avenue, but took the largest store vacated by Vernon and Shapiro. And I might say he was a very highly regarded man, and remained a good friend of ours till his death. He had three wonderful children who made their names as they grew up, made names for themselves as they grew older. Many of us remember Gertrude, who became one of the leading sculptors in the area. We remember the daughter Lily, who was known as Lily Harlan, having married the producer of Men in White on Broadway. And then, of course, there was Joe, the attorney. And I must tell you this, on the day that Mr. Perlmutter was interred out of Michigan Israel Cemetery, Lily Harman was there, and I went over to her and I said, "Do you know, Lily, we used to play together on Bradley Street." And she said, "Are you one of the boys I used to kiss in back of the Bradley Street show?" And if you read her book, you would know what I'm referring to. Other clothing stores on the avenue were those of Barnett Cone, who had his clothing store in the corner of Grand and Jefferson. And what amazed me whenever I visited Mr. Cone's store was his ability to speak fluent Italian. He had come in from New York and knew the language, and because of that he attracted many Italian customers who were then coming to the neighborhood. Another store down the street was run by Joseph Goldberg and his wife. This was an excellent indication of a father and mother working early morning, late at night, to supply their children with a fine education. In that family, William Goldberg became an accountant. Nathan Goldberg, who now lives in Florida, became an attorney. Their son Sidney became an optometrist, and their daughter Helen was one of the first Jewish girls to graduate from Smith College, and is now the wife of Dr. David Horowitz, a well-known New Haven orthopedist. Other stores around the street, there was Feinberg and Cohn, who sold workmen's clothing. And most likely they sold, even then, Settlers overalls, because the Settler family had already been a well-established firm. Mr. Pollock, who ran a women's shop, came along a little later. But these were primarily merchants on the avenue who sold clothing. We mustn't forget that even back then, Grand Avenue was a furniture center. Now, while other kids learned to read by going to grammar school, I began to learn to read by looking out my front window every day and seeing the sign, Jacob Aaron Furniture. And it was because of reading Jacob Aaron Furniture that I at least learned some of the letters of the alphabet. Yes, the Aarons ran a furniture store right across from where I lived. And here, again, was a typical top-and-down store. They were there early in the morning and stayed late at night. And all along the avenue where children could, they would help their families, help their folks. In this case, Louis Aaron helped his father until the business closed up on the avenue, and Louis Aaron went up to Broadway to open the well-remembered Sleep Shop. A short distance away from the Aarons was the New Haven Furniture Company, owned by Samuel S. Cohn and his wife. Here, too, we saw the children at work. Charlie and Leo incidentally was a good friend of mine, worked in a store, while Frank, another son, chose to become an optometrist. And many of us here, I know, patronized Frank's store on Chapel Street near the Palm Park. Holmes also had two daughters. Ida was a good friend of mine. She was the older one. And I remember that one of my early birthdays, she presented me with a Daisy air rifle. I had it around my house for 2 or 3 days and then it disappeared. And I always correctly suspected my mother thought it was too dangerous a weapon for me. Nellie, I believe, is here this evening. She is the wife of Frank Rosen, who opened up a very small electrical supply store on the avenue near Franklin Street. Today it is the largest electrical supply business of its kind on the eastern seaboard, the Grand Light Supply Company. And what is nice is that it remains on Grand Avenue. Other furniture stores on the avenue included P.J. Kelly and I.M. Hopper. I.M. Hopper also had a mom operation. I can see both Hoppers running to their store early in the morning and waiting until the last customer had departed. Further up the street was the store of Morris Glick. Rather small store, but with a great following. And it was Mr. Glick who gave my brother Cass a job as a bill collector. Cass had gone to Mr. Glick looking for a job as he was seeking to earn his tuition to Yale. Turned out to be a graduate of the class of Yale 1918. But Mr. Morris Glick gladly hired him, gave a bicycle, and sent him out collecting bills. Next door to Morris Glick was the store of Frederick Hoffman. And further down the street, the well-established store of the Boston Furniture Company, owned by the Resnickoff brothers. When it became apparent that Grand Avenue was a furniture center, and that people from all over the city were coming to Grand Avenue to buy their furniture, other stores began to make an appearance. Greenberg brothers of Atlas Club fame, they were well-known basketball players, came down the avenue and opened up a store. B. Glick, which had a furniture store on Oak Street, now came down to Grand Avenue. Irving Smolin, who started off in the dry goods business, switched to furniture and opened Smolin's. And along came Magnets. Thereafter, another Resnickoff brother came along. He turned out to be the father of Marjorie Hoffman, a close friend of ours today. Also on the avenue, there were still other stores. Samuel Witter had a used clothing store, and he was assisted by several of his sons. One of his sons, Herbert Witter, was too young at that time to work in the store, but he too is a neighbor of mine on Mix Avenue out in Hampton. Carney Ginsberg sold musical instruments. What brought the Ginsberg family was returned from World War I of their son, Harry Ginsberg, a well-decorated hero in that war. He was a member of the 102nd Regiment of the famous 26th Division. He fought in the battles of Chateau Thierry, the Marne, Verdun, and Seicheprey. And he was the hero of the avenue. Unfortunately, another Grand Avenue son failed to return from World War I. Pete Scandone. His father had a little candy store on the corner of Grand and Jefferson. They primarily sold candy, penny candy, mind you, to children going to Eton School, which was up the block at the corner of Jefferson and St. John Street. Peter went off with the 102nd Regiment, but he was one who gave his life for his country at Chateau Thierry. There are other candy stores on the avenue. Morris Shore and his wife ran a wonderful candy store combined with an ice cream parlor. On hot summer nights, people would flock to the candy store to go to the parlor in the back, which was cooled by overhead fans. While Mr. and Mrs. Shore worked laboriously, filling pint and quart containers of ice cream by hand, their sons, Eli and Ephraim, served the people in the back. Eli and Ephraim Shore went on to go to Yale College, then to medical school, and then into research and earned international fame because of their accomplishments in medicine. Short distance away was the candy store run by Mr. Shemitz and his wife. They had all kinds of candy and they had a soda pump, but unfortunately they did not have ice cream parlor. Their sons too pitched in to help the folks. They had 3 sons and a daughter. 2 of the sons, recognizing the development of electricity in homes, went into the electric supply business. And we all know now of their success. And Sylvan Shemitz, one of the Shemitz grandsons, was a recognized authority in that particular field. Down on the corner of Wall Street was the small candy store run by the Marcus family. Mrs. Marcus being the sister of Mrs. Shore. Morris Kamen had a candy store near Franklin Street, and Jacob Werness had a candy store next to the Dreamland Theater near the corner of Franklin Street. No one would think of going to the Dreamland Theater before stopping into the Werness store to pick up some candy to take with them. Later on, Louis Blinder opened up a candy store on the avenue. He had spent a few years at the hot shop working alongside of my father, but decided being in business for himself was a better venture. Now let me see how I stand here on any other merchants on the avenue, because I don't want to leave any of them out.
Eli Moore.
Okay, Eli Moore. I have it here. Louis and Eli Moore ran a very large dry goods store. Eli Moore was one of the first to recognize the need for a store specializing in children's and infants wear, and he left Grand Avenue to open up the well-known Eli Moore Cooperative store on Chapel Street. Louis Moore remained on the avenue until his son took over the business. His son Alan built over and I were great friends. Alan ran the store ran it as Moore's Wonder Store and did a terrific job until he too left the area. I think maybe I have covered. All right, thank you.
All right.
I have the item on late, believe me, because Mrs. Fox was not the only one to get decked out for Yunkin. When Yunkin came around, my mother felt I was always in need of a suit or a hat. And when it came to buying a hat, there was but one place to go to. And that was the store owned by, what's his first name? Isidore? Later. I would go there with my mother. Now when I got into that store, by the way, I must, well, Mr. Layton's father, Harvey Layton, was his member. And as was already pointed out to you, Harvey's the founder of this society and its first president. I had my own idea as to the hat I wanted to buy on Grand Avenue at Layton's. And so I would go to the shelf to look out my particular type of hat. My mother had a different idea, but usually I prevailed. And I remember one hat in particular, sticks with me to this very day. It was a round hat, round in color, with a little button on top. The front brim was pulled down, the rear brim was up. And I stood admiring myself in the mirror at Layton's store. Mr. Layton stood by patiently while my mother and I decided which hat I was going to buy. I was admiring the admirable quality about Mr. Layton, because he knew there was something wrong about between my mother and myself. But I always walked out with the hat I wanted. Now walking out, my mother gave me strict injunction not to wear that hat until the uncle came. But I could not resist the opportunity to, my mother had gone out shopping, take that hat out, put it on, stand and admire myself in the mirror. And after having my clothes out, I put that little hat back in the bag, and I couldn't wait for Yunkin to come so I could wear that particular hat. Plus there was another hat store on Grand Avenue, Delmonico's, still in business, but no bright Jewish kid, other women from Delmonico. All right, now I shall check my notes again.
Horowitz Brothers.
Horowitz Brothers, Joe? Horowitz Brothers?
Oh, Horowitz Brothers.
How about Miller's Clothing? Miller's Clothing?
I got something else. I want to tell you that these were the days before radio and TV. Entertainment was strictly around the kitchen table each night, so we had nowhere to go. Illumination was by gas jet. Under a gas jet, we played Lotto. We played Old Maid, Casino, and Dissipation. And interestingly, right after the article appeared in one spot in the floor of my life on Grand Avenue, someone read the item about playing piece of patient. She called me. She said, I never believed there was such a game. My mother would always tell me about it. My grandmother would tell me about piece of patient, but not until I read it in Volume 3 of the Historical Society volume there, did she believe there was such a thing as piece of patient. I don't think there are any doubters here tonight. Now, what about gas? Gas lights are short. So those who listen to the report would run out to find a Welsh-back mantle. Now, Welsh-back mantle was a gauzy, flimsy little trident that you put over the open gas jet. This diffused the light so the door, instead of real lighting, to a rather dimly lit kitchen. And speaking of gas, those of us, we all had gas. We either paid for it by a monthly bill to the gas company, or some opted for a gas meter, which they would deposit 25 cents in order to get gas. And lo and behold, the person who had a gas meter who ran out of quarters. They were simply plunged into darkness. Now, I'll give you a moment. Horowitz brothers, I'm saving for another occasion as my time runs down.
How about, did you have Miller's clothing still
How about
on?
the shoe stores, Joe? How about the shoe stores on Grand Avenue?
Well, obviously, when time allowed me, I could not cover all the stores. And I know about the shoe stores, and I'm not prepared to talk about them. I'll throw them in tonight. What I wanted to point out to you was, I want to come back again, you see. And so, here are the things I had prepared for my next gathering. The first Jewish brothers on Grand Avenue, Pinky Rosenthal. The requirement of a license from the Board of Health to sell oleomargarine. These are things you may not be aware of. The start of the Horowitz brothers. Someone asked for that. Yes, I was in on the very beginning of the arrival of the Horowitz brothers on the scene. As a matter of fact, Belville Horowitz, the founder of the business, came to live with Mrs. Duper on the second floor of our tenement building. How she ever found room for him, I don't know, because there were only 3 bedrooms in that railroad flat. But he was the porter there. And I remember starting out each morning with a pack over his back with the beautiful cloth samples he had shown us. I want to keep that for another time, because I will follow through Horowitz brothers to the very end, unless I get a minute tonight to do so. I want to tell you, too, about my introduction to crime. Officer Tom Landy was the baddest policeman in the city of New Haven, as well as perhaps the entire world. And it was he who caused me to commit my first criminal act. Well, I might as well tell you about it. A delivery had been made in front of Danny Door's store. Danny Door sold eggs and a few other products, including the oleomargarine I just mentioned. A delivery man made a delivery there, and he threw his tarpaulin off his truck and left it on the sidewalk. He drove away without it. When I came from Eton School one afternoon, Officer Thomas Landy, who was directing traffic, came over to me, and he said, "Wait here a moment, I want to see you." So after all the kids had left school, he came over to me, and he said, I knew Officer Landy, we had exchanged greetings. He said, "You see that thing lying on the sidewalk in front of Danny Door's?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I want you to go across the street, get it, and drag it around the corner, and leave it in back of Schubert's saloon." I did as I was told. Later he thanked me. He said, "That tarpaulin is now on the roof of my cottage in Woodcrest, Woodmont." I didn't realize it until much later after did a criminal act. Speaking of Schubert's, there's another story I must tell you about parents. My father at that time lived on the corner of Brickman Clock Shop. And the custom of men on the avenue on hot summer nights to repair to their favorite saloon, to have a glass or 2 of beer, and play a little pinochle. Since my father was then Secretary of the Knights of Israel, there were occasions when I would have to go to either fetch him home or deliver a message to him. On the occasion when I made one of my first trips to Schubert's saloon, I looked under the swinging doors. I was spot where he was sitting. I and I would run to him with my message. But I remember as I scooted out that front door, onto the swinging doors again, I couldn't help but glance up and notice a picture over the bar. And there was a picture of a woman with all her clothes off. And I ran out. On subsequent visits, I gave my father a message of fetch a home. I took and increased the light of that picture. I found myself looking a little longer. And then it kicked off. There was a point where I lingered one night a little too long. But the next thing I heard was the bartender saying, "All right, kid, you've seen enough. Beat it." I'm sure only the men know what the picture I'm referring to. Horowitz brothers. All right, let's see. I got them all here.
Did you have Miller's clothing store, Granddad?
Came a little after I was there. I got a picture just before World War I. Okay, here's something. Abraham Rantouche had a little China crockery store on the avenue. Now, why do I remember that? Well, one day my mother sent me to Rantouche to buy a cuspidor. Two. My father had a Sunday morning pinochle club. And there was Mr. Hyman Fisher, who ran 2 millinery stores on the avenue, was a cigar smoker. And so it was time to replace our existing spittoons. I went to Rantouche. My mother said, "Make sure you buy an unbreakable spittoon." Get to Rantouche. Mr. Rantouche sold me the unbreakable cuspidor. I get home. I was a little imp at that time. I wanted to demonstrate its unbreakable quality, so I dropped it on my poor mother. And it remained whole. I picked it up again. And again I dropped it. And again it remained whole. And she was wanted to say to me, "Shine the hook." When I dropped it a third time, and it split in two. My mother didn't say a word. She handed me another 50 cents or so, and off I went to Rantouche to get a spittoon. There was no need for demonstration after I got back. Henry Dworsky, Bill's father, had a grocery and store on Grand Avenue. I remember that store because in front of Mr. Dworsky's store were 3 metal stanchions about 8 feet high. They were there to support an overhead awning that was rolled down in case of inclement weather. I delighted in shimmying up one of those poles so I could get a better view of traffic on Grand Avenue. I shimmied up that pole and looked to the east and to the west, and suddenly I would hear Mr. Dworsky yell out, "Get off that pole, or I'll come out and pull you off." That was the way of addressing us at the time. We can't forget the ladies. There were 5 millinery stores on Grand Avenue at the time. 2 were run by Mr. Fisher. We also had a 3rd store on Congress Avenue. The other stores were run by Margaret O'Leary, Maurice Apsel, and Maurice Oringo. And believe me, the ladies patronized those 5 stores because the bigger the hat, the better she looked. Well, I went through it in 30 minutes or so. Well, maybe question and answer. Let me see if I've omitted it. Let me tell you a little about Horowitz brothers, in case I'm not fine at that. As I told you, Bill Horowitz made an appearance on Grand Avenue before with Mrs. Douglas. And he showed the people in the house, the beautiful samples of cloth that he was going to sell. They were packed in a fiber box which was slung over his shoulder. Following that, he appeared on the avenue with a push cart, and he sold his wares from push cart, still alone. His next step was to get a little horse and wagon. In the back of the wagon was a space for him to put his samples. It was then that he asked me, I was then about 8 or 9, to accompany him on his trips, so that I might hold the reins of the horse while he went indoors to make his sales. I remember we headed out in the western part of town, and I recall that I could see West Rock very, very clearly. When I look back, I decided I must have been on Blake Street, because there was nothing between Blake Street and West Rock. Anyway, after the horse and wagon came a little store. There was a little building on the avenue near Hamilton Street. One half was a Caddy Cheap store, the other half owned by David Horowitz. At this time, he sent for his mother, his sister Ethel, and his brother Jack. They came in from Europe, they were introduced to them. He left Mrs. Butler and got his own place to live. That was the occasion of Horowitz Brothers. And from there on the road started. Because success on Grand Avenue went on to Chapel. Ethel Horowitz, by the way, is Mrs. Katzoff now. And she's still alive and able and rest. I remember as a young girl coming in from
The origin of broken crackers.
oh yes, that is something to talk. We were a poor family. My father's wages at the clock shop were barely enough to raise a family of 5 as parents and the 3 of us as children. So my mother was always constantly on the lookout to save a penny or two. One of the places was the Getz Bakery Company on State Street near the old railroad station. There I was sent to get a whole bag of broken crackers for a nickel. And as a girl, put the crackers in the bag. I hoped she would include Zanzibars, which was my favorite cracker. It was a small-sized cracker with alternating strips of vanilla and chocolate. And on the way home, I would look in my bag, look for Zanzibar, eat it, and another one. But the closer I got to home, the more I realized I had to save some for other members of my family who might also like Zanzibars. That big bag of nickel was really a bargain in those days. Another place I went to was Dillon and Douglas on the corner of 4th and State Streets. 4th State Street, by the way, was just around the corner from Music Hall. That should bring back many pleasant memories for many of you. Many of you have been the site of weddings and later Atlas and a basketball camp. And that's another story. When I went to Dillon Douglas, I had to carry a little pail with me because some of the tracked eggs they sold me oozed. They sort of mixed them up. Some that oozed, some that only had a slight crack. It's still a crack. For a nickel, I got a dozen of those. What was interesting was the man who sold me the eggs would hand me a little piece of paper. I'd take 5 steps to a little cage and pay the nickel and walk back and hand the slip, and he would hand me the eggs. I never figured out why they had to do that. That was a way of saving a penny. I don't want to forget the private seduction stores on the avenue. Of course, on that note. There were a number of them. What I remember first of all was that run by Charles Merman, whose store was right across from St. Patrick's Church. And how we envied that brilliant family. I met Molly tonight, who was a little kid, when she arrived on the avenue. But I went to school with Gertrude, ran a school. I envied Meyer's debating abilities while I was in high school, and I wound up working with John, an engineer at the Southern Union Telephone Company. Whenever anyone thinks of Grand Avenue, you've got to remember that what we knew as a brilliant Merman family. Up the street where the dry goods store run by Meyer Romanoff and his father-in-law, Max Kamen. And the grocery store run by Charles Smirnoff. And there was one run by John Shanley. I mention these names since some of you may know of them. But these were all wonderful stores in those days. I'm coming close on that note. Leaving a few minutes for questions and answers.
Joe, that was just simply marvelous, charming, wonderful. I don't know enough adjectives to describe his marvelous, marvelous presentation. And I could tell from the smiles on your faces how much you enjoyed it. I'm sure many of you could reminisce with Joe. You could identify with the stores and the people that he described. And so what's usually customary at our meetings is we open it up to the audience. Let me just raise this a little bit. Sherman, you have muscles here. You're really tightened it up. And we're going to call on any of you who would like to add to Joe's presentation. Mrs. Wexler, Lenore, why don't you come up, use the mic.
I don't think I have to. I want to ask first, what streets you covered? You didn't go all the way up Grand Avenue, or you would have mentioned the people.
Good point. The area I covered, Nora, was from State Street. Now, cover the areas I leased: State to Olive, down to Jefferson, Bradley, Franklin, Hamilton, Wallace, and East. Beyond East Street was Fairhaven. And I didn't cover Fairhaven because I didn't live there. But I know there were Jewish families living in Fairhaven, the Gorskys, French cousins of Phil, and the Albums, and many, many others. As a matter of fact, speaking of areas adjacent to Grand Avenue, we included even State Street, where Ruth Catherine's parents ran a lovely little candy store on the corner of Osborne and the State. Nor did I cover St. John Street, where we had several Jewish families. That's the area I covered.
I just want to add that, remember, Joe covered the period from roughly 1914 to 1918. So if some of you had relatives who came to Grand Avenue later, like Mr. Marvin, you mentioned Miller Clothes, and so on, they came after. So Joe just did a certain portion. Jewelry stores, Joe.
Well, at that age, I didn't particularly take up Jewish stores. I believe that the ones I knew were Italian stores near my own. But there was Sutta, Sutton, Sutta, S-U-T-T-A, S-U-T-T-I-N, and Glen. Well, all right, I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't think anyone knew that. I knew Morris Linzer, who was a violinist, a young man, right? His father was a jeweler, but they were on Grand Avenue for a relatively short period of time and then returned to New York. That's the first time I've heard the Linzer name mentioned.
Their brother came to America with my uncle and my mother. And my father's sister was married to a Windsor, and they were all Press. And he returned back to Windsor because there were a lot of shoes. I don't remember there was further after where they are now.
And the only one I knew was Morris, my age, and went to school with him. But I thought they'd gone to New York. Perhaps it was the same family in back to Europe. Mr. McNone ran a jewelry store at the Alfonso's, or Fasano.
This lady over here. Yeah. Please stand. We're videotaping this whole program for the future. She got nervous when I told her. Turn, please, so you can be on candid camera.
When I was married, we bought our sofas and furniture from Westport. I remember most of them. I never lived on Granite, but I knew a lot about it. And I still have the sofa.
Really?
How many years have you had?
You're giving my age away. Well, I'm glad I was able to imagine you bought it at the Boston Furniture.
Sir, identify yourself.
My name is Fleischman. Joe knows me. My father had a shoe store on Grand Avenue, right opposite the old St. Patrick's Church. Just about the time you're talking about.
Right.
And then in later years, about 22 and 24, moved up to Fairhaven.
I remember those
Many,
days.
many years.
Someone asked about shoe stores. Well, there was Ewell Shoe Store, UHL, Bernstein, and Goldberg store, yeah. Biggest private store. All right, let me tell you about Allenson Bakery. See, I was trying to crowd all these years, and Allenson's was a well-known store on the avenue. I'm glad you reminded me of that. Mr. Allenson baked in the basement. Mrs. Allenson and her large family worked upstairs. I'll tell you how well I knew the family. It was Bertha, Rose, Celia, Janet, and Beulah. They're all the two sons, brilliant boys, Sam and Sidney. Sam went on to become an attorney, in addition to which he was an excellent violinist, and Sidney became a dentist. Now, I'll tell you an interesting thing. A week or two ago, I attended the 55th high school reunion of my wife, Beatrice. And somebody came over to say hello to Bea, and I was introduced to her as Beulah, whatever her name is. I said, Beulah. I said, what was your maiden name? She said, Beulah Allenson. And the first time I'd seen Beulah Allenson since I think she was born. Today, she reminded me she was a grandmother. But she was too young to work in the store. Because the new Bertha, you know, she worked, put in long hours in that very busy bakery. Now, another baker came along a little later, Max Feinberg. And he opened up on Grand Avenue near Jefferson Street, and he had 3 children. Ida, who married a Mr. Levine, who was a jeweler on Broadway, Barney, who became an accountant in town, and George, who unfortunately died at an early age.
Joe has a phenomenal memory. Give him another time. You remember all those names and genealogy. More comments. Come on, folks. Start the brain. Start thinking about your own childhood or reminiscences of Grand Avenue. Mr. Marvin, you had your hand up.
I was going to ask if he knew there was a Jewish restaurant on Grand Avenue upstairs. Does he remember that?
Simon's?
Simon, that's right.
Well, you see, I came a little later, but I knew Simon's
Came
well.
after 1985.
Because I,
Last family that had a heart.
right, let me talk about Simon's. I ate frequently at Simon's because men from the clock shop would walk over to Simon's and enjoy a good Jewish meal at noontime. My father's constant companion was Hy Dinion's father. I can't remember Mr. Dinion's name, but he and my father always went over to Simon's. And when I worked in New Haven on assignment for the phone company, I always managed to get over to Simon's because I too liked a good Jewish meal. And the interesting thing is that Simon's son, who later became a druggist at the corner of Whaley and Orchard, like all the other children, came down to help the father and mother run that lovely restaurant. That I don't remember. But I remember the 2 leather binding stores on Grand Avenue, one run by Charles Diamond, and the other by Herman Gold. Herman Gold's son was Martin. Charles Diamond's